Hello, purple and teal dragons. In our last video, we went over the value of coins. We talked a little bit about what our different coins are worth and how we can use those coins to equal a dollar bill. And dollars, like I said in the video, are kind of what we have to spend things on because everything's pretty expensive unless it's something really simple or like a piece of candy or something. So we are now kind of diving into lesson 13.3 in Envisions. And this lesson focuses on reading a clock. So there's a lot of different types of clocks that you might see throughout your day. So if you're at school, you might see kind of the more traditional clock, an analog clock. So these are, what we hang up on the walls. They have minute and hour hands, and you have to learn how to read this type of clock a little bit different than you would our digital clock. So sometimes if you maybe have an alarm clock at home in your bedroom or your parents', you'll see what's called a digital clock. So these just give us the time. They tell us it's 9:37 a.m. So when we're reading these, a.m. means that it's the morning time. It's before noon, before 12 o'clock. And if it's p.m., that means it's the afternoon or it's the evening. It's past 12 o'clock. So that 12 p.m. is kind of the split point for morning and afternoon, evening. When we're reading a digital clock, the first number before what's called a colon, so the two dots right here, tells us our hours. So we know that we are 9 hours into our day. Especially if you're using military clocks too. There's 24 hours in a day. So we're kind of at the ninth hour of the first half of the day for the morning. After our dots or our colons are our minutes. So this tells us how close we are to another hour. So right now we are 37 minutes after our 9th hour. So 37 minutes have passed since 9 o'clock, and we are over halfway to the next hour. This is a little bit harder to understand using the digital clocks because, like I said, they just tell you the time, but we can see it a little bit easier on our analog clock. So I'm going to work with you a little bit to explain kind of the different parts of this clock. So we can see on our analog clock that we have numbers starting up top at 12, and it goes around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and it ends at that 12 again. So it's a circle. It's going to keep going around. As we saw on our digital clock, it's 9:37, and that's actually what this clock tells us as well. So there's a couple useful things to know about the analog clock. So the first thing that we want to know is what are the different hands that we have on a clock. Okay, we have this kind of shorter, it's thicker, wider hand. So these are called hands of a clock. And then we have a long, and it's a little bit thinner hand as well. But what do they mean? So first we're going to talk about this thicker, shorter hand right here. So even though it's smaller, this hand tells us our hours of the day. Okay, so this is telling us what hour we are on. And it's kind of weird because if we look at it right now, it's between the 9 and the 10. This isn't Hogwarts. This isn't Harry Potter, guys. We don't have, 9 3/4 that we're reading this. When we're reading our hour hand, we are seeing if it's either pointing right at a number or if it's between two numbers. So right now we're between 9 and 10, okay? That means that we passed our 9th hour, but we're not quite touching or pointing to the 10 yet. So we're not at our 10th hour. We haven't made it around the clock. So if it's between two numbers, it's always going to be the hour for the smaller number. So right now we know that it's 9 something. We're on the 9th hour and so many minutes have passed. But what are our minutes? How do we know? That's where we jump over to the longer hand, our longer, thinner hand. So this tells us how many minutes that we're on, okay? So we are on our 9th hour and we need to count our minutes. And I'm going to show you how we know the minutes for this clock. So 1 hour actually equals 60, so 60 minutes. And if we look at all of these little tick marks on our clock, if we counted those, there are actually 60 of them all the way around. So if we look, we can see that the first line is 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, 5 minutes, and we can keep going all the way until we get to 60. And when we get to 60, our hour goes up by 1. But we have a shortcut to help us count faster. We've all learned skip counting in some of our previous lessons before we left for spring break. So we can actually skip count by 5. Because if we look at all of the darker, the bolder numbers, each of these increases by 5 each time. So we counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anytime we do that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are all showing jumps of 5. So it's kind of like our number line. So we know we have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20, 25, 30, 35, and we went 1 past 35, so we go 35, 36. So we know it's been 36 minutes after 9 o'clock, because again, we're not pointing right at the 9. It's not just the 9 anymore. And again, once we get to the 12, we can see as our minutes go up, our hour hand is moving as well. And when we get all the way to 60 minutes or back around to the 12 with our long hand, our hour hand is now pointing at the 10. So it's 10 o'clock in the morning on our analog clock. So anytime the long hand is pointing to the 12, we say o'clock. So if I added another hour, it's 11 o'clock. It is 12 o'clock. It's 1 o'clock. So that 12 spot, when that long hand, that minute hand's pointing up, that means o'clock. Anytime it's anywhere else, we're talking about our minutes. So now we know we have 1 is our hour, and it's been 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes. So it's 1 1:04. 1:04 p.m. So in the afternoon. So just like our 12 kind of represents 60 minutes passing, it's our o'clock, we also have another important halfway point on our clock. So I'm actually going to hop us to the 6 at the bottom. This is halfway to the next hour. So we're talking about halfway to 60. So if we split it in half and we count by fives, we have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Or I could count 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, 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 all the way up to 30. So this is, again, the halfway point. So we know if we are pointing in between the 1 and the 2, we're going to pick the smaller number. So it's 1 o'clock plus 30 minutes. So it is 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon. In first grade, we really only worry about o'clocks and 30 minutes. So either you're at the hour or you're halfway to the next hour. When you get to second grade, you'll start to do your kind of in-between minutes. But for now, that's what we're focusing on. So again, the main point of this video is that the shorthand represents the hours, the first number. The longhand is our minute hand. And we know that if it's at the 6 all the way at the bottom, it's 30 minutes, it's halfway, a half hour. If it's all the way at the top, pointing to the 12, we have gone a full 60 minutes, and it's now 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whichever hour we have increased to. So 60 minutes equals 1 hour. That's the top of our clock. In the next video, we're going to talk about telling time to the hour and the half hour, and writing it as a value. So tune into the next video. I hope all my purple and teal dragons are having an awesome day. I miss you guys, and keep working hard, studying hard, and reach out if you have any questions about any of our math or our science material for this week or any of our previous weeks. So have a good day. Bye, dragons.